Good evening, everyone. Today is the 16th day of Words of Wisdom series, and today's topic is Django in a nutshell. And today's speaker is Shachita Jain. So, little intro about her. So, she is currently a software engineer at VALUELABS, and she is also a core team member in GDG Indoor and GDG Cloud Indoor Group. So, welcome, ma'am, to this wonderful session. And
Thank you
Pl-
so
uh,
much. Thank you.
over
Thank
to
you.
you. Over to you to
Yeah.
continue this session.
Okay. Thank you, Code Warriors, for having me over here. So, without further ado, let's start with the session. I'll just share my screen. Okay, so the topic of my session is Django in a nutshell. Now, if you are a complete beginner to Django, you don't need to worry because I'm going to start from the very basics of Django, and then we'll be going into the deep topics of Django, deep concepts of Django. So, without further ado, let's just start with the session. Okay, so before starting Django, we need to know that what actually Django is. So Django is a high-level framework of Python, and it's mostly used for the backend web development. It's a free and open source framework. Now we know about the free part, we know about the open source part, but what actually is a framework? So I'll give you all an example that suppose you all want to make a website, a large scale website. Now you are not going to code everything from scratch. You will need some ready-made codes, and that is where framework comes into action. It gives you that ready-made codes or the ready-made structure which you can follow and make your business logic perfect. So Django makes it easier to build better web apps more quickly and with less code and clean design. Again, Django is a framework of Python, so it makes it easier for us to code. And obviously, we'll have to code less in Django because of Python, and it provides us with a very clean architecture, a very clean design, which could be followed for implementing larger ideas. Then Django is said to be the web framework for perfectionists with deadlines. Now, this is because in Django, we need to strive less and we get more out of it. Like you can simply go from development to deployment in very easy steps, and you don't need to write much of the code, but you just need to have a good knowledge of Python and just implement it. So that it is what Django is. But then one question that arises is that we have got our front end and we can make a website with it. So why do we actually require our back end? So in the next slide, we will be seeing front end versus back end. Now over here, one second. Yeah, over here, whenever front end comes to our mind, the things that come to our mind are HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Again, HTML is used for the designing part, CSS we use for formatting, and JavaScript we use for the interactivity. And we have got stores in the front end part also where we can store the data. But then, why do we need backend? So this is because I'll give you an example. Suppose you are using Instagram. Now in Instagram, your feed will be customized according to your searches, and the feed of your friend's phone or friend's Instagram will be customized according to their searches. And that is where backend comes into an action when we require our dynamic website with dynamic data coming again and again. So there are many languages in backend also, that is PHP, Ruby on Rails, Java, if you would have heard of servlets. Then we have got Python. So when it comes to Python, it comes to Django. Django helps us in the backend development. And again, Python has got many other frameworks like Flask, but we use Django and we are learning Django today because there's a reason behind it. And what that reason is, we'll be seeing in our another slide, that why do we use Django. Okay, so we use Django because it's very fast and it's very simple. One of the main goals of Django is to simplify the work of developers. The basic things which the developers needs to code are done by Django, and you don't need to like code again and again those basic things, and those are ready-madely provided to you. It provides you the principle of rapid development. Again, you have got models in Django, which helps you in developing your website very rapidly, and you can easily migrate from one platform to another. It makes it very portable. Then Django applies the philosophy of don't repeat yourself, DRY. This is because you have got functions in Django. Now, if a particular thing is being repeated again and again, so you don't need to code it again and again. You don't need to write that code again and again. You don't need that. You will just make a function out of it and you will call that function. And that is what Django gives us. Now, Django is highly secure and it's a time and crowd tested. It's well established and it has got a big supportive community which keeps on developing more and more features of Django, and it helps us to achieve the main advantages of Django. Now, once we have seen that why we need to use Django, we are going to understand the components of Django. So Django, if you would have studied any of the backend architecture, so mostly the backend architecture follows the MVC pattern, that is model view controller. But in Django, it's different. What Django follows is MVT or MTV architecture. Now, MVT means model view template architecture. I'll give you a step-by-step brief of all these three things. Now, again, model, it helps us to handle the database. You can use Django ORM, which we will be learning about in the upcoming slides. Then you have got view, which contains the whole business logic of Django. It contains that is by using regular expression based, and you will route everything. You will have a route, a particular regular expression that will define your view, and that view will connect your model with your template. So these are the components of Django. Now we will understand about the whole project structure of Django. So to start with, whenever you start a new project, the command that you follow is Django admin start project and the name of your project. This is a very basic command that you should be familiar with because it's the main start of your project. You just go to CMD and you type Django admin start project, my project, and that my project can be anything, the name of the project that you want. Okay, so the structure that will be created, the file structure that will be created by Django will be in this way. You have got my project folder. Inside that my project folder, there will be manage.py folder, which will be responsible for making our applications and making migrations and everything. Then again, you have got a my project folder inside it. And then you have got different files inside the my project that are by default created by Django. That is init.py file. You have got settings.py file through which we can change the database settings, the template settings, and you have got urls.py file. So these are really important part of the Django project structure. Next, we are going to see the Django application structure. Now, once we have created a project, we require applications inside that project. So I'll give you an example. Suppose you have got a project company. So you require an application inside it, say that employee details. Then you require another application, say department details, what all departments are there. Then in employee details, you have got the first name, last name, everything of the employee. And in the department details, you have got what all departments covers the whole company. So this is the applications that we are making inside the company project. So to make an application inside our project, what we need to do is we need to go to the command prompt and we need to change our directory to the project directory. Suppose my project name is my project over here. So I'll change it to cd my project in the command prompt, and then I'll make a new application. And for creating that new application, the command which is used is Python manage.py start app. So app is the name of application that I am building over here right now. You can use any name you want over there. So once this is done, you will have an application created inside your project folder. So your project folder is my project. It contains manage.py, my project that we already saw. And now it will contain another folder, that is the app folder. And this app folder will contain some more files, that is init file that will be by default. Then the admin.py file through which you can access the admin panel. Then you will have the models.py file through which you will be making our databases, the tables, the fields. And then you have called test.py file where you can write the test cases, and the views.py file where you can write the business logic of your whole application. Now, once we are done with the project structure, the application structure, we will jump back to the MVT architecture, and I'll explain how this MVT architecture actually works. So, suppose you are a user, you demand a particular resource from Django. Now, here you demand a resource in the form of a URL, and Django over here works as a controller which takes your request, and then it will take your request in the form of a URL, and it will search in the URL files that whether the particular resource that you are demanding for is available or is matching any of the URLs or not. If it's not matching, it will give a 404 not found response to you. But if it's found, if it has found the URL, it will call the particular view related to that URL, and that view will be responsible for connecting model with template. All the business logic happens in the view, and whatever response is given by the view, it's going back to the URL, and that goes back to the controller, that is Django. And finally we get the resource and the response that the user wanted, and we give it back to the Django is responsible for giving it back to the user. Okay, so now we have seen the MVT architecture. Now, now we will see the models. Now we'll be going a little bit deep into the topics. We'll be seeing models, we'll be seeing views, we'll be seeing the templates. So first of all, we'll start with the models. As we saw in the previous slide, that models helps us to create databases. So we'll be storing our data into our database or table using models.py, which will be created at the time of creation of an application. So over here, we saw that models.py was created as soon as we created that application app. So that will be created as soon as we write that command and the application gets created. Now, talking about models, it's nothing but the whole database. Like suppose we want a table named basic info, and we want two fields in that table, that is first and the last. The first field stores the first name, the last field will store the last name of the user. Now over here, each class acts as a table, and all the fields or all the variables that we are defining inside that class will act as the fields of the table. Now, as you can see the code over here, it's given from Django.db import models. So we are importing the models class over here, and we are inheriting that particular class. So over here we are writing class basic info, that will be the name of the table that has been created, and inside it we'll be inheriting the models.model class, and we'll be using the functions, various functions like character field, char field, integer field, text area, etc of that particular class. So we have made the first field as first, in which you will have the character field, then the last, in which you will have the character field of maximum length of 200. Now we have made the whole table, we have like saved everything in models.py, but we will have to inform our Django architecture that we have done these changes. For that, we will have to make those migrations. For making those migrations, the command that has been used is python manage.py make migrations. Now over here, you can see that as soon as we run this command, you will be getting migrations for app, and here you can see that create model basic info. So the basic info model is been created, but again, it's not been created in the database. It's just making the migrations and telling the Django architecture that you will have to create. But when will Django architecture confirm that now we will create the table? So that is when we apply the migrate command. When we go python manage.py migrate, so it will perform all the operations. So over here in the screenshot you can see that it's applying all the migrations and all the tables are being created. And over here, you know that in models, like in Django, the default database that is being used is SQLite. Obviously you can change that database to whatever you want, like MySQL or any other database that you want. You can simply change it to that by changing the settings.py file. But right now we'll go with the default one, that is SQLite. So over here in SQLite, in the screenshot at the right hand side of the slide, you can see that it has created the table basic info, and it has given it two fields, varchar, that is first varchar of 100 and last varchar of 200. So over here the character field actually signifies that we are defining it the varchar. Like in SQL, whenever you create a table you need to define what type of field that is, like integer type or varchar type. So that is done with the help of this whole Django ORM architecture. Okay, so once this is done, we see that the whole table has been created. Now we will understand that how this Python object is actually getting converted into a table. So this is possible because of object relational mapper. Now ORM, as the name suggests, maps object attributes to the respective fields or respective tables, and we can similarly retrieve our data. Now why do we require ORM? Why do we need object relational mapper when we can, when we know the commands for individual databases, and we can simply write that over here. So suppose I'll give you an example. You are making a project and you are using SQLite as your database. Now there's a demand in your project which demands your database to be shifted from SQLite to MySQL. So you will have to change some of the queries which are not similar in both the databases, and you need to have changes in the code. But then this will become really tiresome. So that is where object relational mapper comes into an action. Over here you will have to code everything in just one language, that is Python, and that Python code, that particular class that you are making gets converted into the table. So over here, ORMs let the developer build the project in one language, that means Python, that we just saw. And there's a settings.py file in the main application, main project application. So I'll show you over here. Yeah, in the project structure over here, see you have settings.py file. So this settings.py, we can change the database settings. By default it is SQLite, and the name is given over there by default. Again, you can change it to MySQL or any other database. You need to give the name, you need to give the password and the database you are using, and you can simply move or simply migrate from one database to another database. So the main advantage of ORM over here is the rapid development. Like you can easily migrate, you have a rapid development. You just need to write the classes, you just need to write the fields, and the table will be created and the fields will be created. Similarly, it makes the projects more portable. You can really, like in few steps, like just changing the settings of settings.py database settings, you can go from one database to another database, and it is easier to change the database if we use ORMs, the last point as it says. So that is why object relational mapper is very important for us. Now once we are done with the object relational mapper and the Django models, now what comes is Django views. Now in MVT architecture we have covered the models part, now we'll cover the views part. Now Django's class based view. Again, Django can have function based views and class based views, but mostly in big companies they prefer class based views. That is because it allows you to structure your code, and you can also reuse your code by inheriting those classes, like by inheriting the properties of those classes, inheriting the whole class to get that particular logic. Okay, now in Django, a view is nothing but just a callable. It's a callable that takes a request and returns a response. Now, if you would have like worked upon APIs, you might be familiar with JSON response. Like whatever API we have, we give the response in the form of JSON response. So this is where views have their part, play their action, and they either return the HTTP response or the JSON response according to our demand. And views are the ones which contains the business logic of a particular URL. Like we have got a URL. Now the whole logic related to that URL will be contained in the particular view that we are making. Okay, so now the next part is I'm going to show you a view that I have been creating, and we will understand how we are going to route it and all. Okay, so here you can see that in my application folder I have got urls.py file, which we already saw that when we create a project it comes by default. So what happens is, in URL patterns we need to specify the URL that will be followed in order to reach to a particular view. Like over here at the right hand side you can see Django apps urls pure py file. That is the actual urls file that we have. Okay, so here we have imported path and include from django.urls module, and over here the first path we can see is admin, and it has the admin.site.urls. So this is something like that is provided by Django. Now, admin panel is by default provided by Django. You just need to create it by writing a few commands that I'll cover in the further slides. And the other part that we are given over here is API slash member details slash comma include app.urls. So now I'm telling it that you have, if you get a path API slash member details slash any path that is given in URLs app.urls. So just go to the particular view that has been called. So I'll just see with the add new member view. So if I give the URL as API slash member details slash add, so it will call add new member view dot as view. Now as view will call that particular view. Now here we can see that this is the view that we have created. So we know that whenever we create an API, we call a post method, and that particular post method will create the new entries in the database. So that is what we are going to do over here. We are calling the add new member. As soon as that URL is called, this add new member view will be called, and it will call the post method over here, and it contains two parameters, that is self comma request. And suppose you are giving a form data over there, so you can simply take that form data in the form of request.post.get. You will take the first name and you will store it in the first variable, then you will take the last name in the similar pattern and you will store it in the last variable. Now whenever we used to create data like new records in SQL, in MySQL, what we used to do was we used to write insert into table values and we used to enter all the values. So over here the same analogy has been followed. We will have the basic info table, and we don't need to write that whole query over here. We will just write basic info, then we will have first equal to first, last equal to last, and this is how it will be saved in that particular table. Now this whole thing will be saved into an object new member, and we will simply save that object, and the whole data that is created, the whole record that has been given from the front end part or from the postman will be created and will be saved in the table, and we will get a JSON response with a message that new member has been added. So this is how the views in our Django works. Now I'll also give you a brief about this. Okay, you have seen this urls.py over here. You have seen this views over here. Now the question arises that okay, all these things we are doing at the backend part, but what if we wanted to be represented to the user? So for that purpose, we make use of templates. So being a web framework, Django needs a convenient way to generate HTML dynamically, and the most reliable approach is using template. Template is nothing, it's a simple text file. It can generate any text based format like HTML, XML, CSV. Mostly we use HTML file so that we can design a proper layout, or we can design a proper thing that is visible to the user. Now we will see that how the template actually works. So the template over here has got a template render process. It has got a template render engine which performs the template render process. In render engine, we have two parameters that come. First is the render data, second is the template, and finally the render engine of Django gives us the rendered output. Now we'll see an example over here. So over here, as you can see that we have got a template with the h1 tag and the pre tag with a interpolation saying that is a variable. So these are the hotspots that are available in our template, and that hotspots are fulfilled with the rendered data that is being coming from the from the backend. Over here we can see that the value of the key is fun stuff. Now what render engine will do is it will replace that particular hotspot with the desired data, and the final output which we get is we'll have an h1 tag, and in the pre tag we will have the fun stuff been replaced by the key value. Okay, so this is how the template render process works. Now we'll see an example of template. So suppose I have a path that is I'm calling a path that is the whole extension, and then I'll be calling TMPL slash game slash 200. Over here you can see game slash slug guess, and then we, as soon as I call this particular path, so the URL pattern will look for the view related with it. So over here we can see that game view is related with it, and the whole business logic is written in the game view class. Okay, so over here in the game view class we have got a get method in which we are taking three parameters. First is the self parameter, second is the request, and third is the guess parameter that comes from the URL. And over here we are creating a render data that is x is equal to, we are taking the key as guess, and we are taking the data, whatever data comes from the user input from the URL. So over here we are getting 200 as our data in int guess, and now what we are going to do is we'll be passing it in the render function. So this render function is actually the render engine which gets a request, which gets a templates, and which gets a rendered data. So once this rendered data comes into this template, what the render engine does is it replaces all the hotspots with the particular rendered data. So over here you can see in the template condition.html template, here you can see you have got a paragraph. It's a simple HTML file where you have got a paragraph, and you have got your guess was, and over here you have got a hotspot for guess, and that will be replaced by the rendered data that is 200 which is coming, and you can see the output over here. Your guess was 200. Then it will check for the conditional parameters, that whether the output was greater than 42, less than 42, and according to it, it will give you the output. So over here you can see that the output which comes is too high, and the earlier that was written is your guess was 200. So this is how the whole template thing works in Django. Now, once we are done with template, we are done with the MBT architecture. We have covered models, we have covered views, we have covered templates. Now, one of the main features that is provided by Django is the admin panel. Whenever you are using any other architecture, any other framework, what happens is that you will have to create an admin panel, a very low-key admin panel, so that all the site managers can properly manage their site. Now you don't need to take care of it in Django. This is one of the ready-made things that is provided by Django. It will create an admin panel for you. So how do it create an admin user? Django entirely automates the creation of admin interface for models, and in that admin interface you can simply add, change, and delete your content. Then again, in that admin panel, it's not intended for the site visitors, it's actually intended for the site managers. Now the basic command that we need to keep in mind while creating an admin user is python manage.py create super user. So this is what we use to create an admin user over here. So it will ask for your username, whatever you want. It will ask for an email address. It will ask for a password, and sometimes you might not have a good password. So it will also give you a like a validation password thing, in which it will ask that whether you want such common password or not. If you go with yes, the super user will be created successfully. As you can see in the screenshot, I have created a super user, and as soon as I go to that particular site, that is the whole address slash admin, I will have my Django administration page, and I can give my username and password, and I can enter the I can simply enter into the admin panel. So this is it. Now it's time to start with the practical implementation, because we have covered almost everything that we wanted over here, and all the basics have been covered. Now we will have the actual implementation, where we will be making REST APIs. We'll be creating a particular user. We will be deleting a user. We will be updating the values of a user, and also we will be getting all the users. So let's start with it. But before starting, I'll tell you why it's important for setting up a virtual environment. So let's take an example that you are making a project. Okay, so your project requires Python 2.7 dependency. Okay, and now you're making another project which requires Python 3.9 dependency. Now, if you change the global settings to 3.9 or to 2.7, any one of the project would get hindered by that, and that is where virtual environment comes into action. So virtual environment provides you some virtual small spaces where you can install all the dependencies, all the versions of the libraries that are specific to your particular project. Right. In my first project, I can simply install Python 2.7 and I can work with it. In my second, I'll install Python 3.9 and I'll work with it. And they are not related with each other, and they wouldn't hinder each other. So why do we need to set a virtual environment? Again, to separate different Python environments for different projects, and it works as an environment manager for us. So for installing virtual environment, the first command that we use is pip install virtual env. And since over here in the screenshot you can see that the requirement was already satisfied, because I've already installed a virtual environment. So this is how it will look like. Okay. Now, once you have installed the virtual env, you will have to create the environment for your usage. Okay. The command to create your environment is virtual env, and whatever the name of environment you want to give. Suppose I'll give env for this one. And once your virtual environment has been created, you will have to activate your environment, so that all the installations you do, all the versionings of the libraries that you have over here is specific to your particular environment, and you go inside that environment and you run your project. Okay. So what you need to do is you need to change your directory and go to the environment. So over here I'm doing cd env, then cd scripts, and then I'll activate my virtual environment. So this is how the virtual environment gets activated. Okay. Now once we are done with it, we will start with the actual implementation of our REST API. Now, first of all, I'll just explain you the basic structure. I'll be making an API. So I'll be making a whole project that is company, and it will contain an application employee details, and it will contain two tables, education and employee details. So this will be the whole architecture of my project. And over here, as you can see the screenshot of my Visual Studio Code, this is the how our our whole file structure will look like. It will contain company, it will contain employee details, and various files will be created as soon as we create the project. So I'll just share the Visual Studio Code screen to you guys. Okay, so we are here. So first of all, I'll give you guys like 2 minutes to go through the structure over here, the file structure that is available, and then I'll start by explaining how it's all done. Okay, so I'll just start with it. So over here you have got the project that is company, and you have got application and application inside it that is employee details. Now, first of all, before starting anything, you know that I have made an employee details application, but I need to inform my Python project, my Django project, that I have this particular application and it should be used by Django. For that, I'll go in the main settings.py file, and in the installed apps, I will write employee details. So see, this is where we include the employee details part. Okay. Yeah. So this is where we are including the employee details part. Now Django knows that you have an application employee details, and whatever changes you are going to make to it, it will be reflected in your Django application. Okay. Now I'll just start with the URLs. Okay, so this is the main URL file. We have already seen the examples of URL. So I have got an admin panel over here, to which I can go from like writing admin slash. Then I have got and another part that is API slash employee details, comma include employee details dot URLs. Now this is where I'll include all the URLs of employee details application. Now suppose, now these are the URLs of employee details application. Okay. Now suppose if I want to create a new employee, I'll have to call this particular create employee. And for that, the whole URL would look like API slash employee details slash over here create. And as soon as I call this particular URL, so this create new employee dot as view will be called. Now as view function, what it does is it will call this particular view and it will execute all the business logic that has been applied in that particular view. So I'll go to my views. Okay, here we are. So here is our create new employee view. Over here, we can see we have got create new employee view. And here we have got the get method. Here we have got the post method. So again, if you want to create something in an API, what method you would be calling is mostly post method. Post method is used to create a new entry, a new object for your database. Okay. So as we saw earlier that I'll be taking my request as request.post.get. I'll be taking first name, then last name, then address, then contact number, then experience, then technology, and then I'll be saving it. First of all, I'll show you the models file. So this is our models file. And since we already saw over here that we have got two models, that is education and the employee details. So you can see over here, we have got education and you have got the employee details model over here. So education contains two fields, that is experience years and technology. And now the employee details part contains first name, last name, address, contact number, which is a phone number field type, and education ID. Now what this education ID is, it will act, it's a foreign key which is coming from the education table. So you can see that how we define foreign key in our models. We have models dot foreign key, which is again a function of model class, and we will define the table whose foreign key it is, that is the education table. And again, it cannot be deleted without deleting the whole entry. So on delete models dot cascade. So this we have understood the whole architecture of the model table. Now we will see the views file, that is creating a new employee. We saw that we took all these entries, first name, last name, address, contact number, experience, and technology. I'll show you how we can send this form data using Postman. So Postman is basically a tool that we use for our like API testing. Like if you do not have your front end developed, and if you are working only on back end, if you are a back end developer, so you are not going to contact with the front end guy again and again to check all minor things. You have got this very amazing tool that is Postman, where you can test your APIs, you get your errors, you can pass all the parameters that you want, and you can have the whole access to the functionalities of your API. So we will see here. I've made a collection, hack with CW collection, and I've got all the methods over here. So what we are seeing right now is creating a new employee. So here we have got post method, and we have got okay, we have got this create, and these are the names that I'm sending. So I'm taking first name, and here's the value that I'll be passing. I'm taking the last name. See, I'm sending everything in the form of form data. Then I'm taking last name, then address, then contact number, then experience, and then I'm taking technology. Now, before everything, you need to learn how to start your Django project. Okay, so you will see it over here. One second. Yeah, so this is how you do it. Python manage.py, run server. And once you run that server, see over here it's telling that starting development server at http 127.0.0.1, and the port number is 8000. So this is by default that we are using. Okay. Now we will go back to this application. We are using this port number 8000, and then we are calling the API as API slash employee details slash create, and we are calling a post method over here. From here you can select different methods like get method, post, put to update, then delete to delete a particular entry. So you can do all these things, and you are passing form data, and all these fields are being passed. Now we'll send that particular thing. We will see the response. Okay, so here we can see the response. I'll just like this. Okay, so here you can see the response, that is success true, and you will get a message that is new employee has been created. Now I'll show you. See over here, you have this education details. You have saved this education. Then you have this employee details, and you have saved this object employee details dot save, and it's been saved in the database in the backend part. Okay, and once it's done successfully, the response that we'll receive is true and new employee created. So this is exactly the response that we got over here. So this is how we create a new employee in a particular API. Now we are done with this. Now the second thing which we will see is get. So over here we will see that how we can get the employee information according to a particular ID. So we can see that as soon as we call the get method, the get employee details by ID view will be called. Okay. So here is one second. I'll just yeah. So here is get employee details by ID view. This is over here, and we will now, since we are getting something, so we are not going to use post method over here because we are not making any changes in the database. We are just telling that this is the ID and just give us the details that are relevant to this particular ID. So over here we will take that particular ID, data ID, and we'll store it in the employee ID variable. And okay, now in MySQL, what happens is you write the command that select star from table name, where you will put a condition ID equal to whatever ID you want. Now you don't need to write this whole command over here. It will be something like employee details, that is the table name, dot objects dot filter, and you will write ID equal to employee ID. Again, you can use dot get also over here, but I'm just using different functions so that I can give you a more vast ideas of what all functions are available for you guys. Okay, so over here we are using the filter method, and the filter method will return the object, and we will iterate over that object, and we will iterate over that object, and we get each and every value from that object. Now you have got an employee object, so we'll go like for employee in employee object. We have got okay, so we have got education database equal to employee dot education ID. Now this is exactly how Django model foreign key works. Okay, so this is how Django model foreign key works. You are going to use this foreign key education ID to access that particular like table that is relevant to which contains the primary key as an education ID. So here education table we are accessing education table using this education ID, and we have got education database equal to employee dot education id, and we get access to the experience years and the technology in that education table. We can see it over here. See education database dot experience year, and here we have got education database dot technology. Okay. So this is what we are going to do, and finally we have retrieved all the details of that particular user with the particular id over here. We'll get a message success true, and you will get all the employee complete details by id. Okay, now we will test it using our postman tool. So here is get employees by id. First of all, I'll see that the id that has been created. Okay, I'll just see why it's not getting called. Okay, here it is. There was some network issue, nothing else. So see, here the data that we created has been created, and the employee ID is 8 and the education ID is 11. So we want the employee ID by ID. So we have seen that the ID was 8 for Shachita, Shachita record. Now we will just call this get method over here, and get method, and we will pass this id as a raw data, and the id value is 8. So as soon as we pass send over here, we should get all the details. Okay, again there is some network issue. 1 second. Yeah, got it. Yes, so we have got all the details. See, for the ID 8, we have got the first name, we have got the last name, we have got the address, we have got the contact number, we have got the education ID, experience, and the technology. Okay, so this is all that we have got over here. So this is by using by getting by id. Okay, now again with the id we also want to change the details of some particular records, like we want to edit some of the records. Suppose the record that I have made right now has got an id as 8 and has got the education id as 11, right? Now what I want is I want to change the name from Shachita to something else, and I want to change the technology from Django to Vue. Okay, so let's see how it's done. So this is the put method over here, and we have got ID as 8. We have got the education ID as 11. So this is how it will recognize that which record it is. And I just want to change my first name. Sorry, first name to let's change it to Shika, and I want to change my technology. Yes. Okay. So I'll simply call this put method, and I'll send a request again. Then there's some network issue. I'll send it again. Okay, so as soon as I send the method, here I can see the message successfully edited the employee details. Now we will check in the get method that whether the details are being changed or not. So we will call it by the id 8, and we will send a request over here. I'll send it again. Okay, so here's the result. So here you can see that the first name is Darshika, it's been changed, and the technology is also been updated to Vue.js. Now the business logic behind it, again we will understand the whole logic behind this function. Okay, so we have got the education ID, we have got the employee details according to it. Now, what we will do is we will take all the keys from the data. Okay, now what the keys are over here? The keys will be ID, it will be education ID, it will be first name, and it will be technologies. So we'll take all these keys from data.keys and we will convert it into a list. So I'll have a list with the values as ID, education ID, first name, and technology. And once I do this, I'll like store that particular list into a variable data key, and I'll iterate over that list. Like I'll iterate for key in data key. I'll see if the key is experience or technology or first name or last name, because it can be any. And I'll change the experience years to data of key, that is the value of that particular key. Like over here the first name, like over here we can see the first name. I'll replace employee dot first name with data of key, and the data of key over here is Darshika, so it will get replaced by that. And finally, this is the main thing that you need to do. You will have to save that particular information in your database, and you will call a save method for that. Education details dot save and employee dot save over here we are calling, and it will return JSON response successfully edited the employee details. So we saw this JSON response that successfully edited the employee details. Okay, that means the employee details are being saved. But what if the employee doesn't exist? Then what changes do we make? So over here I am taking this was the try, and this is the except that I'm calling, that if the object does not exist, then I'll return success as false, and the message will be that no such employee record was actually found. So I'll just replace my ID with suppose 10, because there is no such ID with 10. And I'll just call it again. Okay. Okay. 1 second. I'll just call it again. There's some network issues, that's why it's taking so long. Otherwise, it doesn't take so long. Okay, I'll cancel and I'll pass again. Okay. Okay, again there's some network issues over here, that's why it's not happening. Okay, so but we saw that how we got all the details updated. Now we will see that if we want the all the details of all the employees, so what we do in that case. Yeah, I'll send it again to check. Okay, there's some issue over there. Okay, so over here we can see for getting all the employee details, we like in MySQL, what we do is select star from table name, right? So over here we'll do in the similar way employee details dot objects dot all. So it will give you all the objects that are available in the employee details table. And now we are going to iterate over those objects, that for employee in employee details dot objects dot all, we will again access the education database by the Django model foreign key. And over here we'll write employee dot education ID, and we will access the education database for that particular ID, for that particular employee whom we are iterating over. And we will save all those things inside this particular dictionary all employee, and then we'll append that dictionary into employee details. So the final output that we get is success true, and all employee details we'll get it in the form of a list. So I'll just show you all. Here we have get all, and we will send the request. See, over here we have sent a request, and we have got success true, and we have got all employee details. And this is the employee that we created, Darshika and Vue.js, and this was an employee which was already been created earlier. Okay, so this is how the whole thing works. Now we will be talking about deleting a record. Now we have seen that we can create a record, we can update a record, we can like get all the records, we can get a record according to the ID, we can also delete the record according to a particular ID. So we will take an id over here as a parameter, and we will get the object that is relevant to that particular id, like employee objects, employee details dot objects dot get. We'll get that particular id, and we'll just call the delete function over here. As soon as we do that, we will have successfully deleted the employee record. Now I'll show it to you over here. Now suppose we will delete this employee with id 8. Okay. So it's taking id as a parameter, so I'll put over here id as 8, and I'll call the delete method from here. uh, and this is the delete that I'm calling. See over here urls.py, I'll have to call this delete, so that the delete method functions, and I'll be sending the data over here. See, okay, I don't know what this network error is happening. Okay, see, now you can see that it's giving us this message success to and message successfully deleted the employee record, right? So this is what our JSON response should look like. It should be like success and successfully deleted the employee record. Now we'll again check in all the employees that whether this particular record has been deleted or not. We will call all the employees API again to check whether the particular record has been deleted or not. Okay, I'll call it a yeah. Just see, earlier it was showing one more object, but now since we deleted that object, it doesn't show any particular object over here, right? It shows the only earlier that the object that we created earlier. So this is how all the functionalities work. Now I'm going to show you about the admin panel. So this is admin.py where you have got it. And here you can register your data, your table, like Django table over here, Django model over here. So you just need to write admin.site.register education, that will contain the education model, and employee details, that will contain the employee model. So again, for going to that particular admin table, what you need to do is you will just go to this particular site that we have seen it earlier, and you will go to admin. Um, okay. Okay. So we have been logged in. I'll just log out and show that how it actually looks like. Okay, there's some net issues coming. Okay, so we have logged out. Now I'll say I'll log in again. Okay, it's taking some time. I don't know why it's taking some time. We'll again try that. We'll just server, and we'll just run the server once again if there's the problem. Manage.py run server. Okay, it's running now. Yeah, cool. We have got it running. Now I'll enter the username, that's admin for me, and I'll enter the password that I've set, and I'll log in. So here you can see the whole admin panel that has been provided by Django itself. Like this, nothing you need to do over here. You just need to manage your site using this. You can see employee details over here. You can simply click over here. You can see the object that has been created, and you can see all the values of the object that has been created. And this is the this is the foreign key to that particular object, and that is how you can manage. You can save and add another. You can save and continue editing, and you can also delete your particular record over here. So this is it for me. We have seen the whole working of the application, and I am done over here. So Code Warriors team, Snehal, you can take it from here. You can ask me any questions if you want.
Yeah, so some questions are there. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So
What's
the
the
first,
difference between? Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So, what's the difference between MVC and MVT? So, basically, MVT is like model view template thing, and the controller over here is played by the Django itself. In model view controller, you have got different models, different views, and controller, but in MVT, that controller part has been played by Django itself. So, you don't have it like some other layer or something. You have template instead of that, and the whole controller part will be played by like Django. Next, please know the difference between Flask and Django and advantage. Okay, okay. So, okay, Flask basically, if I tell you the most basic difference, it's that Flask will be used for like not much bigger projects. It's mainly used for the smaller projects. Again, Flask has it got its own perks, but the CSRF exam, CSRF prevention, and the excesses, all these things are provided with Django, which helps us for the security purposes as well. So mostly we prefer Django over Flask. Next.
so as no more questions are there. Okay. Yeah. Hello.
Okay, can we use MongoDB for storing the data? Yeah, you can you can use MongoDB for storing the data, but then it becomes a bit difficult over there when you use MongoDB. So we prefer using the basic databases over here, but yes, you can go with MongoDB too. Is Django good for machine learning deployment? Machine learning model development. Yeah, Django can be good for machine learning model deployment. Again, it depends on the usage. Like what, like if you use a framework, it will be very useful. It will give you the basic structure, and obviously, it can help you. But without using that, also you can like have the model deployed. But again, with using Django, you have got the security things taken care by Django and all. So it is somewhat good for machine learning model deployment. Some resources from where we can start learning Django. Okay. So some of the resources from where you can start learning Django, the documentation, the actual documentation of Django is really very comprehensive, and you can start from there. Then you can just look for some Medium articles if you face any difficulty in a particular topic, because that's what I do. Medium articles are really very good, and many people are again writing the articles, so it will be very beneficial for you. Some next question. Best editing tools for Django. Editing tools, as in the editors, are you asking about? I'm not clear with that. Like VS Code and all, editing tools. Like if you're asking about the editor, you can use any editor over there. You can use Atom, you can use VS Code. I personally believe in using VS Code because I find it more like balanced in that way. Does Firebase can be used? Yeah, Firebase can be used for the deployment of your project, of your Django project. And yeah, you can use Firebase. You will have to follow all the steps over there. And you can simply use Firebase. You can use AWS for the deployment. Like you, whatever you use for your normal project, you can use it for the Django project as well. Next.
Yeah. So that's all. So
Okay, okay.
thank yeah. So thank you very much, ma'am, for
Thank you
this
for having
wonderful
me.
session and
Thank you
solving the
so much
doubts
for
of
that.
the yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
guys,
Thank you for having me. One second, I'll just share my screen. One second, I'll just show you. So these are my social media handles. If you have further doubts, you can connect to me through LinkedIn or Twitter or GitHub, whatever, and I'll be happy to solve all your doubts over there. So yeah, I'm done here.
so guys, our moderators will share the link in the chat box for the quiz session. So attend that quiz for the certificates and please share your feedback about this session so we can share that feedback with our speaker as well. So thank
Sure,
you.
sure. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.